thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Oh, baby, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. My goodness.
I can't wait for your show this Friday. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want you to start off telling our listeners a little bit about yourself. I knew you grew up in Detroit, and one of the things that I read about you that I thought was pretty interesting, for someone who has kind of a background in R&B and soul and stuff, you didn't actually learn to sing in church. Is that true?
No, I was raised a Catholic, but I don't know. I guess that you can hear more blue in my voice than you can anything else. But I guess that all black voices, just because of slavery, have an element of gospel, and they're just in the sound of their voice. But it isn't where I honed my craft.
Okay, then that brings up the question: where did you get, or how did you get into music?
Well, in 1962 in Detroit, it wasn't a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, all you had to do was come out of your house, really, in 1962 in Detroit. Because everybody that didn't have a record company was a producer or something, you know, so it really wasn't difficult to record at that time in Detroit. But in learning songs, and well, I guess another thing is that no one can be taught to sing. You can be taught to play an instrument, but either you can sing or you can't.
I agree.
And my parents sold corn liquor during segregation in the 40s in Muskegon, Michigan, where I was born. And we had a jukebox in our living room, which played all of the time. Oh. There was no women of the evening or gambling. It was just fried fish sandwiches and barbecue and corn liquor and the jukebox and live. And so I learned all the songs that were on the jukebox very early. I mean, I guess it must have been about 2. But I learned all those songs, and there were some gospel tunes on it, and the the rhythm and blues. Well, rhythm and blues really hadn't quite happened yet, but the blues songs of the day. And my mother was a country western fanatic, and we listened to the Grand Ole Opry all the time because you could get it very late at night almost anywhere in the country, really. Mm-hmm. And listen to that, and there were country western tunes on the jukebox. So that was pretty much where I picked it up.
Practicing singing along to the jukebox, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, that's for sure. So what was your first recording experience like? Were you nervous? Were you excited to have the opportunity?
I was extremely excited. I mean, nobody else in my 9th grade class was recording.
You did start off relatively young.
Excited, but it wasn't eventful. It was just a $150 recording session. The big thing happened after that Sunday that we recorded it was that Monday Atlantic bought it, and that Friday I became Bettye LaVette.
There you go. Can you remember the first time you heard yourself on the radio?
Mm-hmm. I was going to do, then when you had a record, you had to do a record hop, which was supposed to be the payola for getting your record played. Of course, we know it far exceeded that. But I was getting ready to do my very first record hop that Friday night, mm-hmm. and I was getting my hair done, and in all black barbershops and black beauty salons at the time, there was the local black radio station on, and it came. In fact, I had only been Bettye LaVette now, mind you, for a week, so I didn't catch the name when he said it. But when I heard the recording, I just jumped out of the seat. I was very close to my house and ran home with half my hair done and half not done. It was, as I said, it wasn't happening to anybody else on my street or in my 9th grade class.
Sure. And that was the start of if you don't mind me saying, very long career here. I mean, you've done...
Well, yeah, this is, it happened, in fact, around this time of year, around the middle of August in 1962. This is my 49th year.
Wow. That's amazing. And it's been a very varied career at that. I mean, in the 70s, you went down to Muscle Shoals, I understand, and recorded down there. That must have been quite of an experience, recording with the Memphis Horns and stuff like that.
Well, not really, because they weren't who you think of them as now.
Oh, is that right?
It's kind of like when I say, Otis Redding and I used to date or whatever, like, oh, my God! I said, but he was just a guy who was broke who sung.
Sure.
These people weren't these people all their lives. So, no, the Memphis Horns were not the Memphis Horns then. They were just the guys who played horns in Memphis. And the the rhythm section was not whoever they became later. They were just the guys who played then.
That's funny. You know, I have to admit, I'm kind of a late starter to your career. I first heard about you being a blues DJ on the radio when you got the W.C. Handy Award for Comeback Blues Album of the Year. I think that was around 2004, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I think yeah. And it was for your album, A Woman Like Me, which is a great album. I particularly like the version of Right Next Door that you had on that album.
Oh, thank you. I really think it's a good rhythm and blues album. I really do. It was, at that point, it was the rhythm and blues album I had always wanted to record.
Sure.
And I think I got it in that one.
Well, it got you a nice award from Living Blues critics as well. I think you were named the best female blues artist of 2004. That's pretty incredible, too. That's a nice little honor to receive.
Honey, just being acknowledged is pretty incredible after all this time. You know that I and everyone else thought for sure it was absolutely over. I mean, you're supposed to think it way before that time, but I really thought by that time I pretty much accepted the fact that I probably would never have another record. I knew I would always sing because that's all I know how to do.
Sure.
So I always, I knew I would always sing, but I just did not think that this that's happening to me now would, it had a chance of happening.
Yeah, and I'm glad that it has, because you've gone on to make some really terrific albums.
Well, I'm extremely relieved myself.
Sure. Now, I have to bring this up because I know that there's going to be a lot of people who saw this and were probably just as moved as I was, and that's the Kennedy Center Honors for The Who, for Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey, when you sang the incredible version of Love Reign O'er Me. And I've been a Who fan since I even knew about music. And I got to tell you something, I'm very critical of people who cover artists that I'm big fans of, and that was just an absolutely unbelievable version. It must have been interesting to walk out onto that stage and sing that song in front of Pete and Roger.
Well, it was an incredible evening for me. I mean, you have to hear again. It's just like the thing you were saying about various people, and I was saying those people weren't those people then. That was an extremely. I'm from Detroit. There was Aretha Franklin sitting in front of me,
sure,
and who has just had so much more success than I have, although we've known each other since we were 16 and 17 years old. There was Barbra Streisand, whose first record came out when my first record came out, and she's always been there, the factor hanging around for me as in my struggles. And then there was Beyonce, the new nemesis, So they were all there, and then above was Peter Townsend and Roger Daltrey, who, while they were not, a part of my musical life ever at all until then, they were, as you just said, like my husband. My husband's Irish. My husband's like, oh gosh, they've always been a part of his. They were part of his young life.
Sure.
So I got a chance to get about 4 jobs done there right quickly at one time. So I've been calling it my Three Stooges slap.
Forgive me for not knowing this, but was that the inspiration for your new album, Interpretations, the British rock song?
Yeah, it really was. My husband said, why don't you do a whole album like that? And I said, well, I'm not going to sit and listen to all of those tunes, so you get me some. And he got me about 100 or 200 tunes, and my new producers, who